So good afternoon. Welcome to the Sumo Sales Academy. Today we're going to be talking about the sales process KPIs that accelerate the performance of your business. And I'm delighted to be welcoming Stuart Reeves from eBri to this session. Welcome, Stuart.
Hi, everyone.
So, Stuart, tell us a little bit about eBri and about your role at eBri.
Okay. So we are a fintech company that focuses on the SME market, so mostly companies that have exposure to currencies, i.e. import or export. We do this by a number of products: lending, FX, some payment services, and basically we have an option of using our online platform or having a personal dealer who will keep an eye on the market and contact you regularly. So currently we have around 10,000 customers in 20 countries. We can make payments in 140 different currencies.
It was good to see eBri were highly placed in the recent Tech Track 100.
Yes, so we came 30th, which was quite a surprise to us. We were surprised to come that high. We were in the FinTech 50 a couple of years ago, and once you're a member of the FinTech 50, then you retain it, so we're still a member of that. But yeah, we were very happy about that. Last year was a big year for us. We got $83 million worth of investment, which was the second biggest FinTech investment in Europe. So yeah, we're doing very well.
Great. So if you have any questions during the session, please do put them into the chat window, and also please join the conversation online using Twitter with these hashtags.
Sorry, you asked about my role as well, didn't you?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I run the, if I'm wanting to sound important, I describe as the sales and marketing stack. And if I'm breaking it down a bit, I look after Salesforce, the marketing automation, our Kickstart solutions, anything that kind of sits with sales or marketing people. My background is Salesforce consultant.
So welcome to the webinar, everyone. Traditionally, sales process KPIs have always just tracked and managed and monitored the end of the process, the deals that were done, that's the value of the pipeline. But eBri wanted to get behind that, and they wanted to look at the behavioral motivation to understand not just the output of what was being done, but the things that happened along the way, that happened behind the journey. So Stuart's going to tell us a little bit more about his experience to understand how this has helped them to accelerate their sales performance. So what was your vision?
So our vision was really that we didn't know very much. So we've got 200 salespeople split across a few offices: London, Warsaw, Amsterdam, Madrid. We knew who the best people were, but we didn't really know why. So we very much focused on the traditional, KPIs of how much time you were on the phone, really, and that was about it. And then we would try and make a link between that and how much money you make. And we wanted to be more sophisticated and try and work out what good looked like, and try and work out why our good performers were good performers. So one of the problems we had when we were hiring is that we didn't really know what we wanted. We wanted someone like these guys, but we couldn't really define that. So we wanted to work out what good looked like, and we also wanted to try and make the process a bit more fun for sales and try and make them enjoy a bit of competitive spirit, both within their offices and between the offices.
So it's interesting you talk about the top performers. You'll often hear me talk about Paula Perfect as being the top performer. Can you talk a little bit more about the insight you got from those top performers and how you used it?
So yeah, I mean, the top performers, if you looked at the basic stuff, so if you looked at call times, amount of times on the phone and revenue, there's no correlation whatsoever. So these are not people who are spending a lot of time on the phone. But once we started running the Motivate product and looking at stealth mode, what they were doing is they were doing a lot of data and booking a lot of meetings and building a bit more of a slower process. So they weren't hammering the phones quite as much, but they were closing a lot. So it was only when we started to look at who's entering, updating contacts, who's updating deals, not necessarily the people that are hammering the phones. I mean, it not necessarily what we wanted to hear in terms of our traditional KPIs. It was, we would like a bit of more correlation between phone time and closing, but that's what we learned.
Okay, that's good. So the KPIs, what KPIs did you originally track to set up?
So we use New Voice Media in conjunction with Motivator. That was good. So we could start to look at long calls. So there's a clear correlation. We weren't able to do that before when we used our previous kind of BT solution. So Motivate and New Voice Media meant we could start to look at medium calls, long calls. So massive correlation between long calls and revenue. We started to look at some things we were interested in as a business, which sales weren't interested in personally. So we use Bureau van Dijk for a lot of our data sources, and we use their identifiers as a foreign key for quite a lot of important processes. So we started trying to give a little nudge to collect those BVD IDs. And we wanted activity, we wanted people to modify records. And quite simple at the start, really. So, we started as a company, we only had 2 KPIs. Do you make money? Do you make phone calls? So it's a massive improvement just to run on those.
Did you see much difference in the KPIs between the team leaders, the managers, and the reps?
Yeah, so I mean, we've got a BD, origination model, and then a senior sales head of desk. So our structures are desks, but within that, they've got quite different roles. So the BDs are hitting the phones hard, but not really taking care of the data. So that was one of the things we learned, is that we were pushing them a bit too hard on the call times, and maybe we should try and push them a little bit, let them slow down a bit and think a bit more about the data. Whereas the heads of desk were not making that many phone calls, but were curating the data a lot better, and that's really their role. So we were quite pleased with what we learned about the heads of desk, and less pleased about what we learned about the BDs. It looked like they were probably pushing them too hard.
So as you went on this journey of beginning to understand the things they needed to do, not just those destination measures, did it become clear that there was key things around data quality that if they didn't do it, later stages of the process were broke, but they didn't care about that before, but now they could see why it was important?
Yeah, so one of the things that's traditionally has been a problem for us, it's quite difficult. We're a heavily regulated industry. To open an account with us, you have to give us quite a bit of financial information, particularly if you want us to lend to you. You have to give us your full year accounts, you have to identify yourself, and the onboarding process is quite detailed. So it's quite hard to open an account with this, and we've got a bit of a problem, or we used to have a problem with people opening an account and then never trading. So we've invested all that time in you've invested all that time in us, and you've never actually traded. So you're not using our services, we're not making any money. And that we kind of learned was because we were pushing people through the process. And you could see where accounts were opened very quickly with only one contact, it's never been updated, with a forecast that was never updated. And the account's been opened way before it was forecasted to. You could see that people have been rushed through the process and probably had just filled in the forms just to get rid of us.
So it sounds like moving away from driving people to, you've just got to get these accounts open, to asking who are all of those important people, the contact roles, the real things along the journey.
Yeah. Have you actually modelled that business? Have you spoken to all the right people? Have you got an idea of who you're dealing with? Do you understand them?
That's good. That's very interesting. So how did you go about motivating these desired behaviours?
So yeah, some simple competitions to start with. We put the desks against each other within each country. So all the UK desks against each other, and then we would call out the best performing BDs, business developers, and we would give them some rewards at the end of the week. So weekly competitions really at the start, because we're still learning, and we wanted to keep it kind of short and focused.
So something we heard from John O'Neill when we did the session last week on coaching was that, as he called out what he called the champions, or the Paulers, as we talked about a minute ago, as those people became visible in this way, they actually then went and helped other people in the team. Did you see a similar effect?
Well, our findings are quite interesting, in that the people that started winning were the people that the sales management considered to be not the best performers in terms of just pure revenue, which is all we looked at really along with call times. And when we started running the competitions, there was quite a lot of controversy about the people that were winning. It was incredibly unexpected that these people would be winning. So it made us go back and really think about how we evaluate people and how we judge people. and what we could do to make the guys that were winning successful in terms of revenue, because they were hitting the targets and winning the competitions, but not making any money. So we had to take a step back and really think about what that meant for us and what we could do to help those people actually turn that effort, which they were clearly making, into revenue.
That's interesting. So on this journey, what did you do next? What were the next steps?
So yeah, the next steps were just to go away and look at the data and think about why it didn't look how we expected it to look, and to think about what we were doing wrong from a management perspective, that people who were clearly doing the right stuff weren't getting rewarded. So it's quite a difficult conversation for us to have internally, and there was quite a lot of pushback from sales management. So what we had to do is we had to run a couple of competitions purely on rev and call time. So we had to take a step back once we'd identified these good performers to see how they performed in the old world. So we made a couple of changes to the structure, moved a few people around in the teams, and then we started to see the people who were winning the competitions on the KPIs started to make revenue. So they started to win both ways.
Right.
Once we'd taken a step back and looked at what we could do to help them.
So it sounds like the behavioral insight gave you two things. It gave you information to coach the team, which is really important, but it also gave you information about how to change the process, how to improve the overall process.
Yeah, absolutely. So it called out some people that we'd perhaps already given up on, that we should invest time on. And when we did that, they started making money. They're now, at least two of those people are now our top performers in KPIs and revenue, and have been promoted to senior sales roles. And yeah, it made us think about the process that we went through in terms of how we sold and how we engage with customers as well, and made us take a step back on that as well and think about really engaging with people on a more of a psychological buyer journey, rather than just going, please open an account.
Yeah, so the change in that delivered more business, delivered business quicker, kept the workforce engaged, lower churn.
Yeah, lower churn. I mean, the churn has really dropped off. So this time, say it's a year and a half ago, we were losing, 3 or 4 people a month. I would rarely recognise, I'd walk onto the sales floor and there'd be at least 4 or 5 people every week I didn't recognise, and it's been quite stable now, and that's been a good thing. And the people that, we've rewarded because they perform well on the KPIs and then started to perform well on rev have been, inspired some of the other people as well. So yeah, it's been a huge positive effect on the culture.
That's interesting. So what would you do different? So people that are listening in and thinking about starting to work in this way, what would you have done differently?
So the big thing we would have done differently is we would have run in stealth mode for a lot longer, because we went straight into competitions and then we went straight into a fight with our sales management about who was winning. And if we'd done that in stealth mode, we could have had that conversation offline, and it would have been a much easier process rather than having to do it publicly, basically, which is what we had to do.
So that baselining stealth mode is really important, so everyone can understand the data, the implications of the data. Yeah. We talked a little bit about the scoring of behaviors. So this isn't just about the things that people do, but starting to put a bit of scoring, not just tracking those kind of final values. What do you see the scoring beginning to help you predict? So it's not just about the closing of the deals today, but beginning to be able to predict what could be closing?
Yes, I mean, this is something that we're kind of moving into now. So previously we just tried to work out who was good, then we tried to work out why they were good, then we tried to make sales do a few things they didn't want to do so we could get our database and our org in better shape. And now we're starting to think about, the deal health and the pipeline health. But we're quite in the infancy of that. And again, that's probably something I wish we'd done a bit earlier. So we've got an idea about what's likely to close because of activity and data maintenance and creating more contacts and contact roles. But one of the things we're going to get into now is the pipeline on the deals. How often are you updating your deals? How often are you moving around the close dates? In what way are you moving around the close dates? So that's something we're going to start now.
So these are real journey measures. These are stepping back from the closing of a deal and beginning to understand it's a good deal because, or it's a bad deal because, and that's great insight driven by the behaviors. Okay, let's see if we've got some questions coming in then. So there's one, I think we've covered it, but let's try it. What type of KPIs did you track and how were they achieved? So let's just probably talk just a little bit more about those journey things.
A bit more. So medium and long calls was a big one. So we use Negos Media, so all the metadata from calls are in our org and available to be used in Motivate. So if we weren't using that, we wouldn't be able to do that. And obviously there is a clear correlation between long calls and closing. We looked at, origination for the BDs. So how many leads did you create? We looked at a bit of campaign execution. So one of our kind of big problems with particular teams really has been marketing give out some MQLs, sales call a couple of them, just go, oh, this is no good, I'm not calling anymore. So we started to look at what they were and weren't calling and start to push them via Motivate and points and competitions to at least finish the campaign before we start talking about whether it was good or not. So we've given you 50 leads, just call them all. And, we'll reward you in other ways and then we'll work out if it was a good campaign or not. We looked at disqualification as well. So we had a problem with huge amount of leads in our org being disqualified as having no currency exposure or no FX, which our data team just started phoning a few of them up and finding out it clearly wasn't true. It was just the first one on the list when you were disqualifying. So we started to push people a little bit that way to collect better information on disqualifying leads. Obviously, if you disqualify it in the right way, it means we can mark it. So if you've got no FX, you don't import or export, or you do, but you do it within the Eurozone. So, you're in Germany and you buy goods from Belgium. Yeah, all right, there's nothing we can do for you. So we're not going to bother trying to market to you. But if, your decision makers otherwise engaged or, you are exposed, but you're hedged out for long term with the bank, and if if sales can collect a bit of information about when those hedges expire, then at least we can re-engage with you at the right time.
So real landscaping, so asking questions that not just about the deal that could be done today, but the right landscaping questions for the deal that could be done next year, the year after, and the year after.
Yeah, exactly. So stuff that they're never going to make money off themselves, but we as a company could potentially make money out of. So that bigger picture stuff.
So I guess for some of that bigger picture stuff, without this in place, why would they ask the question, what's in it for them? They're not going to earn anything, so they wouldn't do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's... there's a question about, we talked about stealth mode and baseline. If we just talk a little bit more about, so you didn't go into stealth mode, just talk a little bit more about what is stealth mode and why would you got into it?
So stealth mode is all the same information that you're going to be using in your competitions, but without exposing that to the user and running the competitions. So don't use the sidebars and the little Visual Force plugins, just collect the data as you would. You could see who would win if you ran the competitions, it's all very clear. But yeah, it's very non-public and it means you don't get into, you can have a soft launch. So you've got an idea about who's going to win, why they're going to win, and you can run different scenarios. So we could have done the whole, KPIs versus pure revenue. We could have done that without anybody knowing, and we could have had those conversations offline and say, yeah, it's one of the big things we didn't do, and it's something I would definitely do differently.
So looking out of the room we're in, there's quite a diverse group of people working here. Do you see any difference between new and established people in the team, the different makeup of the team you got?
Yeah, so the newer people, we kind of use Motivate a bit as a training tool as well. So probably not necessarily something it's necessarily designed for, but it works. When we get new BDs, we tend to get them fresh out of university. They're all very excited. And the idea of winning competitions or having a chance of winning a competition is quite exciting for them. The more established senior people, it's not, they're rewarded in other ways. So it's the new people in the BDs that really get excited. And yeah, we find it helps us onboard people because it's very clear about what you need to do to win or to come close in the competition. And those are all the things we want you to do anyway.
Great. Thanks for that. Let's just see if there's any other questions coming in. No, I think that's them all. So three things to take away. So, you know, do you have a clear picture of, you know, I talk about Paula Perfect. Do you have a clear picture of Paula in your team, your top performer, and how they innovate around the process? Do you manage and monitor those KPIs that span the whole process, not just the end point? So we've heard today from Stuart the managing of those key things that happen along the journey drive the business forward. They make people more successful. They allow them to predict what could happen. And are you able to tell the true health of your deals? Can you see that deals have gone up and downwards in the pipe? So it leaves me just to thank Stuart and the team at eBury for joining us today. Next week, please join us again to talk with Richard Vidler, where we're going to explore how sales targets can be smashed by moving the middle performers in your team. Thank you.